Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com. Also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks, on 26 global audio and video platforms. Sorry, I had to breathe there. iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo. The list is too long to go on. So we are proud that we are voted number one Caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM, and number two Caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of the top 60, and number two on caringvillage.com. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Dr. Liz, with only 3,500 practicing geriatricians, did I say that word right?
Geriatricians, yeah.
Serving more than 59 million people over 65 in the United States, Dr. Liz feels a sacred duty to educate elders and those tasked to care for elders. She is an education and advisory organization providing effective, interesting, and sometimes entertaining educational knowledge and telehealth help to those on the front line caring for elders. But before we get started, I want to thank last week's guest, Judy Bailoff. She's had 7 careers. She started as a nurse and ended up as a financial advisor. And how she got there was through her open heart surgery and 5 strokes, where her oldest daughter and husband were her caretakers for her recovery. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews, including this one, on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or all of our other 26 global networks that I mentioned, like iHeartRadio and iTunes and YouTube, etc. Okay, enough of that. Dr. Liz, welcome to the Caregiver Dave Show. We're so excited to have you on.
Well, thank you, Dave. This is very exciting for me too.
Oh, good. Glad we're both excited. I always like to ask my guests, just who is Dr. Liz and why was she placed on this earth?
Oh, that's pretty metaphysical. I think it was all an accident that I'm here, but now that I'm here,
there are no accidents.
So, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a doctor. And then I was in medicine for 10 years doing primary care. And then I got more interested in the challenges of taking care of older people. I went back to, I'd done my residency at Harvard. I went back to Mount Sinai in New York City, did a fellowship in geriatrics, and then I taught at UCSF as assistant professor of medicine. And I found that really pretty interesting. But what I was really interested about, my mom had frontal dementia in her 60s, and that was pretty awful. And
that's early.
That is really young. That's getting younger every year, as far as I'm concerned. And I didn't really understand it, so I wanted to learn more. And I got some good training at Mount Sinai. And then I worked with a number of folks with dementia and mental illness at UCSF. And then I realized I'm more interested in the community, and I started with a hospice. I've been boarded in internal medicine, geriatrics, palliative care. I've been a hospice medical director. I've been a consultant to the Elder Abuse Forensic Center in San Francisco. So I've done a lot of things. And what I really find fascinating is the folks where no one's been able to fix them in 4 or 5 years, that they're often really either angry or paranoid, or people can't take care of them, or there's been strange things going on, but they look good enough and their mini mental status exam is, over 24, so no one's going to call it dementia, or there's financial elder abuse, or, there's just too many doctors and like 40 medications. And so for me, it's my form of Sudoku, and it's been wonderful. It's what I've done with my career for the last 18 years. It's been a booming business. It's been really interesting, but I really don't like to drive. So I'm pivoting, and I'm working more online. I have developed my website, Dr. Liz Geriatrics. It's got a lot of good information. It's got blogs, it's got videos. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube. I am not nearly as prolific as you are. I mean, I can't even imagine, kind of having that presence, but I have my little presence. And so we're working on training modules to give educational units to elder care professionals, but families can, also do the training online. We have telehealth, where people can either have a video visit with a geriatrician, a gerontologist, a care manager, or a dementia coach. So I'm more interested now in what can I do to get good information out to the rest of the country. As you said, there's only 3,500 practicing geriatricians. I also wanted to have good information for free. So that's what my website is. And my people come from like northern Minnesota and rural Nebraska. And, I had a friend whose grandson abused her, got the title to her house. When she got lung cancer, didn't treat her, but got an insurance policy on her. And no one, in the small town helped my friend until, she got really sick and ended up in the hospital. And then my friend went out there and said, "Mom, you're coming out." She didn't want to come out earlier. And they blamed my friend for not doing something sooner. So I'm like, I'm trying to get information out, to the areas where they don't have many where they don't have geriatricians, where they don't have many doctors. And, families are just really struggling, like we did before. Well, I kind of had an idea what to do, but it took me a while to convince my mom's doctors of a better way to address things and, being gentle about it. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, I'm no stranger to dementia. My mother had it. My mother-in-law had it. And each one is so different. My mother was just a lovable little teddy bear. Everybody loved her. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, and this isn't just because she's my mother-in-law, but she was a witch. She just was paranoid. She questioned people stealing from her. She didn't trust me. She thought I was trying to take away her house. And, it was just awful. And they say it's genetic. I don't know if you worry about with your mother having dementia at an early age that you might also run down that road. I certainly am. So I found this ad on Facebook where I can get these tests, free dementia, pre-dementia. And so every 6 months I go and they give me the test, what's your name? Where do you live? What state is it? Who's the president? Count backwards from 100 in increments of 7, etc. And luckily, I passed, barely, but I passed.
Well, I hear you there, and the dementia thing is a concern of mine. I did a lot of investigation. There's some information in my book about how to stay healthier. Basically, it's really simple to have a mainly vegetarian diet. Animal fats, saturated fats aren't great for you. I mean, I haven't given up. I mean, I'll have a steak a couple times a year, but I'll have a lot more.
Fish is okay. Chicken?
Fish is better. Chicken's not great. The good source of studies and information is the Sure's Eyes. They have got all the studies, and they're vegan. I'm not going to do vegan, but and 30 minutes of exercise every day. So making time for yourself and keeping physically active, controlling your blood pressure, your blood sugar, making sure you're not obese, not smoking, and cutting down how much alcohol you have, just having it once or twice a week or none. Resveratrol does not prevent dementia. I'm such a killjoy. But if you do those, you can cut down your risk of dementia by over 50%. So
I have really very impressive. Little vices, so I'm in good shape.
Cool. Great. I'm glad to hear that. And, if you don't have to pay for that testing, I think that's okay.
That's all free.
Wonderful. I take more of a Buddhist kind of approach that, I don't think you'd be able to run your business. That's going to get you before this little test is going to get you. But, if it makes you feel better, that's great. I think, just keeping your body, you know what I found being over 50?
What?
I'm getting these chicken waddles. My muscles are not. I've got more fat. I mean, tell me when this is TMI. But I've got more fat.
My wife talks about the same thing.
And my muscles are shrinking. And so what's really important, I mean, weightlifting would be good. I don't like to weightlift, but like I just went for an 8-mile hike up and down Mount Hood.
Wow.
I just keep active and do the stuff you like and be very involved. That's my advice. Be connected to the people that are important to you, and do the things that are important to you. That that is my recipe, and that's
Well,
what I'm doing for myself.
let me share with you my frustrations with my dementia patients. They're both dead now.
Okay.
But when they were alive, they were a big source of stress because doctors didn't cooperate. I could not get either one of them to diagnose the patient with dementia
Mm-hmm.
because, well, I'm sure she has some form of dementia. I says, well, I need a diagnosis in order to qualify for this and that.
Right.
Well, it's hard to do that, and we don't want to do that, and it's like they were trying to protect themselves from a lawsuit or something. And both of my parents, the mother-in-law, they needed to get out of this house. They needed to be in a facility
Mm-hmm.
because they almost burned the house down, and they were paranoid. They call in the police every night. Somebody broke in and stole my stuff, and then the next day they broke in and they put it back over here. I didn't put it there. Just driving us crazy. She even
Right.
got a hold of a locksmith, changed the locks like 5 times before I took the phone away from her and says, you can't do this. Got a video
So your mother-in-law
system
sounds
to,
like,
to prove to her
yeah,
that nobody came in the house. See, nobody. In fact, you were there. But it doesn't, the
okay.
logic doesn't work with them, does it?
You know what? This is
All
fabulous.
part of the
Yes,
conspiracy.
your mother-in-law is my people. Those are the ones I take care of.
I wish
I
I
take
knew
care
you
of
at
the
that
ones.
time.
Well, there's the different kinds of dementia. Just really briefly, is there's Alzheimer's, which is the most common. That's the deposition of the plaques and tangles. And by the way, that antibody stuff that takes out the amyloid, there are no studies that show that it makes the people better. I think there's a process going on, kind of like either Lyme or COVID, where you have the inflammation and the amyloid is something you find after. So taking it out is like, taking out the garbage after you've burned dinner. It's the burned dinner that's the problem. It's not the garbage that's left over. And that people tend to be a little bit fuzzier. They get less emotionally connected to people. They're less interested in their activities. They're likely to forget their bills and appointments and those sorts of things, take their medications. Vascular dementia is harder. That is more often with obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, anything that's increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And that you get more selective deficits. Short-term memory can be gone, but in the moment they can sound fine. I've had a number of people where, let alone the mini mental status test, where they say if it's over 24, you don't have dementia. Well, that's not exactly true. They might ace that. You can do neuropsych testing. If you put it on paper, they can figure it out. But if you ask them what they did the next day about that testing, they're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't have any testing. So it's several components, and particularly if someone sounds okay, like the vascular dementia are the ones that are more likely to say, you're stealing from me. You want to take control of everything. I'm not going to that day program. I'm not like those crazy people. I'm fine. You're crazy. Leave me alone. I'm fine.
You're my mother-in-law.
Exactly. And so those are the people I work with. And what you need to do there is, and I hear you. I mean, there's medical groups that just refuse to do any cognitive assessment or dementia assessment. And then there's other places where they do just the mini mental status exam. I've got a blog post of Trump got a perfect score on dementia test. Too bad it's not the right test. And it's not a partisan thing at all. It's like the Betty Ford and breast cancer. It's like people have heard of Trump talking about, man, woman, TV. So I was like, okay, let's talk about it. That's the same
test they gave me, though.
Well, it is. I mean, it's like meh. And the thing is that it's helpful to have a good score, but there's changes you can have in your brain. Like if you had an injury to just right above your eye called the temporal orbital, you can look completely normal, except for, and they've done MRIs, so they know that this is a thing, you've lost your risk assessment. So you're very much at risk for being financially abused because you can't see it coming. And there's a different test called the Iowa Gambler's Task, where they show you losing a couple times, like, at the casino. And most people will be like, ooh, I shouldn't do that anymore. But people who've lost their risk assessment keep doing it. And so, that's been quantified, and that's pretty cool. There's a lot of times that medications can make people look more nasty, and they really aren't. And that's the one that just, hurts my heart, in that, often if people are anxious or irritable or nasty, they give them a little Xanax or Ativan to kind of chill them out. But the problem is, it's like giving them shots of vodka. And, if you use it once or twice a month, well, that's probably okay. But often they say, give it several times a day if needed. So, if they're a little antsy in the afternoon, you give it one day, you might give it a couple days later, but then they start withdrawing from it if you've done that for a couple of weeks. And then they're like, they're getting worse. We better give it every day. And then it's like, they get tolerant to it and they get more agitated. So then they up it to several times a day. Then they up the dose. And, there's times when I've had to take care of people who've been on like 8 milligrams of Ativan, which is a huge dose. I mean, if I have to have someone go in for a procedure, I'll try and give them a 0.5 milligram, once or twice a day for a couple of days and then taper it off. So we doctors we don't see it. There's seizure pills, Keppra, that can make people nasty and angry. There are even antidepressants, Prozac, Paxil. This is all on my website, drlizgeriatrics.com/medications. So Paxil.
So it can mimic
Cymbalta,
symptoms of dementia. Is that what you're saying?
They can, and they can make people more angry and paranoid.
And how about alcoholism? I have a nephew whose mother constantly drinks, and they believe that it caused her dementia, and it only makes it worse, and she won't stop.
Yeah, no, that's a huge problem, and I'm happy to have your nephew reach out and kind of help them with that. That is very common, and I'm seeing it more in people in their 60s. If they've been drinking hard. You can't really diagnose mental illness or dementia until someone's been dry for 6 months. But it's like, well, if you got dementia, like I had one patient who, I'm Episcopalian, and Episcopalians like their wine, at parties, not just at church. So this woman would drink 8 glasses of wine because she was, the priest's wife. And, she would be falling down drunk, and then they'd take her to the hospital and she'd dry out. And she couldn't, reason her way out of a paper bag. But because socially she sounded okay at other times, they're like, oh, we can't do anything. It was like, even they got neuropsych testing. They're like, no, she doesn't really have, she doesn't have capacity, but we can't do it. So
with my mother-in-law, there was an event where the police came, actually the fire department and the police, because she called them so many times. And so they agreed to take her to the hospital for a 72-hour evaluation. And so when she was there, we were begging the doctor diagnose her with dementia, and he wouldn't do it. And the next thing we know, after 72 hours, I says, do not release her back to her home. She has to go into a facility. We've got a place. It's reserved. And behind our backs, he released her back to the home.
Yep.
And I says, why do you do that? If someone is physically unable to return to the home, he can tell them that you cannot go back home.
Well, he's not right.
He cannot he cannot tell if a person, if they're mentally unable, cognitive.
So basically, they're wrong. They're wrong about that. That what you need to. So particularly in California, I mean, there's a lot of individual rights, but someone has to show that they can't provide food, clothing, shelter before APS, Adult Protective Services, will even step up. And then to put someone where they don't want to be or give them psych meds when they don't want to have it, you need to get them conserved. So you would, what I would do if I was working with you guys, I would go in and I would do an assessment. And then there's this thing called a capacity declaration. And doctors, I guess, get a little allergic to doing those, but I do that. And what you can say is, if you're not exactly sure, you can say that they seem pretty apathetic, or they seem really too angry or too anxious. And then you put it in front of a judge. and then the judge decides whether that person has the capacity or not. So I think a lot of people in medicine just don't want to deal with it at all. But as you found out, I mean, I've seen many families who've been really stuck where, the daughter goes with the angry, paranoid mother who doesn't want to do anything and won't let anyone else but the daughter take care of her. So the daughter's given up her life for 5 years to live with her mother. No help, no nothing, no follow-up. And it's heartbreaking. So you need to have someone do the capacity declaration, find an elder law attorney, and then go in front of the court and then have the judge decide. And if the judge decides, then you can give them some medication and then you can place them.
Now, I'm currently dealing with my aunt, which is my mother's sister who has dementia, number 3. And so we were called, she's in an independent living facility.
Okay.
You have your own apartment, no meals or anything. And they were concerned. They called us up. They says, your aunt is here and she doesn't know how to fill out a check. And she's talking like crazy and she was really confused. Of course, she wasn't managing her meds. Mm-hmm. And so that could have been part of the reason. Anyway, she was part of Kaiser, and Kaiser was very happy to give her a dementia assessment, mm-hmm. to my surprise. Mm-hmm. And they actually did. They gave her the test, and I said, she definitely has dementia because, she doesn't know her boyfriend's name. She doesn't know the president's name. She doesn't, she definitely has some memory issues.
Right.
And so we got her. I found out just recently that she'd been seeing this guy at her place, and she's 84 and the guy's 87. Mm-hmm. And, they've been doing stuff, and my aunt is a good Christian woman. Yeah. And so, they've been living together. She left her apartment in another building in the complex, empty, paying rent, and she's been living with him. And so they wanted to evict her because he says, if you got to be living with somebody in an independent facility, she has to leave. And we came to the conclusion, they're in love. They want to get married, but we told them they can't get married because of Social Security and pensions and this and that. But he's taking care of her. Now, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. Mm-hmm. He has some memory problems, mm-hmm. but I gave him the same test that they gave me, Right. He knows who the president is. He knows what city he's in. He just forgets a little. So I think he's okay. So it would cost a fortune to pay somebody to do what he does. He's loving her. Right. I put the pills in the box. He manages her meds. Right. He's a health nut. He's got her eating right. He's got him doing this exercise machine. And so we got lucky. So in December, when the lease is up, we're going to give up her apartment. She's just going to officially move in with him. She's been with him for a year. And so because he's watching over her and he's not dementia, they're allowing them to stay there.
That's a wonderful love story. I two things go through my mind. One, I would just make sure that you or a third party are involved with her finances.
My sister does that. She had to take over that because that was getting a little sloppy. The bank called and says, she comes down here like every week and she wants like $1,000. Right. And so we immediately control that. She gets $200 a month now. Good. And my sister takes care of all of that because she's got a lot of pensions from her ex-husband, not her ex-husband, but her deceased husband. So
the other thing that goes through my mind is, this guy's not a spring chicken. And it's, as you know, caregiver Dave, it's hard taking care of someone else. So if she has some funds, I think some should go to him to help around the house, either, with housekeeping or meals or, Well,
he has a son who gives him money. So.
And I hear that. I'm just saying just in general. I'm not saying you.
Yeah, when they move in. It hasn't happened yet. They are living together. Yeah. And the son wanted her to pay half rent. And she says, well, she's already paying full rent at her place. In December, she'll be happy to pay half rent, because that's only fair.
Right. So, the other thing that I often see is, the one person who lives next to mom of all the adult children, can get left taking care of mom all the time. And it sounds like you've had your hands full with, relatives that were close. And
so far, she's pretty low maintenance because my sister takes care of the finances. I take care of all the medical. We got her out of Kaiser because it's just too far away to travel. Yep. Now she has a doctor very close by. So I take her to all her doctor appointments. And my sister takes her to all the financial stuff. And he's doing a great job. I mean, right. And he's not demented, and he's sharper than she is. And now that the meds are being managed, I think she's getting better. Maybe some of it was drug related.
I bet. Yeah. No, I think that's great.
Still has a terrible memory.
I'm just saying, just in general. I always want to make sure that the one person that is there, right. Boots on the ground. Gets breaks and gets support as well.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I hear that the son is doing that, but just that's all. Not a problem.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've come to the end of our time. Time sure flies when you're having fun. How can our listeners reach you and get a hold of your book, etc.?
Well, there's drlizgeriatrics.com. We have the website. We have the training modules. We have, which are still in development. We have telehealth. For a geriatric assessment, gerontologist, care manager. And then I've got my book that you can find on Amazon. It's Living in the Moment, Overcoming Challenges and Finding Moments of Joy. I appreciate what you do to help get the word out. And, what the things I want to work on are treating pain, taking care of undiagnosed dementia, treating agitation without Ativan and Xanax, and helping families figure out what to do about the medications and all.
Well, thank you again. Remember, everybody, that all our live shows become recorded podcasts on all your favorite platforms. You can purchase my new #1 newly released book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, a great book that's changing lives all over the world. And it's available wherever books are sold, and my website, caregiverdave.com, which is a free membership website support community with lots of tools and resources and free gifts. And check out my Facebook page, Caregiver Dave, a community of 34,000 caregivers. And if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this interview on, it helps us reach even more caregivers by improving Google's search engine algorithms. So thanks again to all my listeners out there all over the world for making us the #1 caregiver podcast. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I'm Dave Nasani. My 4th book, Secrets from the Hammock, Uncommon Wisdom for Uncommon Times, is a #1 bestseller on Amazon. As a young boy, I was told I possessed an unusual amount of wisdom for my age. As a young man, I found myself counseling friends and older family members whenever they needed answers to their problems. Then at 21, I read the Bible for the very first time and learned how King Solomon asked God for wisdom instead of riches, yet he received both. I was so impressed that I too asked God for wisdom. Soon after, I discovered when lying on my hammock, I would receive wisdom from God. This book is the result of my passion to share with the world wisdom's tremendous benefits. Join me as I reveal practical aspects of wisdom for the mind, body, and spirit. 31 lessons I learned from God that can change your life. Available in hardcover, Audible, Kindle, and paperback, wherever books are sold. I've spoken all over the country and London, and am available to speak at your event. Contact me at hammockwisdom.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again.